Hi there, I'm Dr. Kelly Bodwin. I'm an assistant professor at Cal Poly, and this is me, if you want a face to go with this disembodied voice. And I unfortunately don't have any recorded lectures or talks right now, but actually this works out great because it gives me the chance to demo for you the software that I think is kind of the crux of this presentation that Dr. Glanz and I are proposing to give at the RStudio conference. So what I want to show you grew out of this idea that introductory students should be seeing software. They should be seeing coding and interacting with code and seeing how statisticians really do analyze data in the modern world. But this is often quite a challenge because these are students who are new to coding, who are new to statistics, who are usually not statistics majors or even necessarily STEM majors. And it can all be a little bewildering at the beginning. So what Dr. Glanz and I have put together here is this series of shiny apps that sort of walk the students through what's going on with the code. Which pieces are they choosing? Which pieces are built in? How that code is functioning as a vehicle for the data analysis. So here's just one example of one of my pre-lab exercises that the students do before they do their own analyses. And here I've got a data set of baby names. So what it is how many babies were born with a particular name in a particular year in a particular state. And here I've narrowed it down to my family members and in California. And these students have already, this is lab 4, they've already done some coding. They know how to do things like summarize, and I'm using these nice chunks from the Learn R package to let them write their own code. And so they can do something like summarize the data and talk to me about it and so forth. And then I can take them through the analyses that I will have taught them during lecture that week. So this week in particular, we talk about ANOVA and regression in chi-square tests. And so what we want to be able to do is we'll start with making a scatter plot here. And so I've given them the basic scaffold of the code. And they've seen ggplot before, but they haven't seen geom_line and geom_point. So what I like to do with this code is give them the outline, and then I highlight the things that we're choosing. So the blue here, that's because I've named the data set Kelly's. And so that's something that we have chosen to put into this code. And then we're deciding between geom_point and geom_line. And so this part here will change as they choose between a scatter plot and a line plot. And then they get to decide the variables. And this to me is the most important part because students often struggle with which of these words came from R and which of these words came from the data set. So in this case, of course, they come from the data set. What we'd like on the x-axis is the year, the time when that baby name was recorded. And on the y-axis, we want to know how many babies with the name Kelly were born. And so once they type these words in, they can see where it shows up in that code, right? As they change it, this part changes, and they go, aha, this is where I input the names of my choice. And then once everything is correct, they get these nice scatter plots or line plots as they prefer. And this is also nice because they can make mistakes. They can choose other variables, right? If there's other variables in the data set, they can change that up, but they can also make common mistakes like not capitalizing and see how there's an error. So it is giving them sort of the same experience as interacting with R in console, but really highlighting which pieces is their responsibility to choose versus which pieces they are kind of learning as a new language. And so I ask them to think about the output. I ask them to do a linear model in the same way. Let's look at year versus count. Do we want to say that the name Kelly is increasing or decreasing in popularity? And they can look back at their plot if they want to. But they can also learn to read this R output, which is a big part of the class. How do we interpret the p-value and the coefficients and so forth? And they can get some feedback in real time. So we have a p-value here of essentially 0. So we can put that in and they can say, aha, good job, I did it right. I'm interpreting that output right. So it's really synthesizing all the concepts that are in the lectures for that week along with the code in a way that is kind of digestible. And then I don't want to stop there. I do not want to spoon feed everything, otherwise I would just use an applet. So what's next is that they have these RStudio cloud accounts, and I do have permission from this student to share this material. And so I basically only give them a blank markdown file that reads in the data and also loads the tidyverse. And I say, do your own analysis. Here's the full data with every name, or most of the popular names anyway. And so what this student has done, and this is a student with no coding background, no stat background going into my class, is she has gone through the names in her family. So she chose Carmen, John, Josephine, Jewel, Helen. And she's gone through and done, just kind of copied my analysis, but she's had to output or copy over and edit this code all on her own. I didn't give them any of this code except for in the form of that prior pre-lab exercise. And so she is able to make these regressions. She did end up commenting on how this does not fit a linear model, so she did notice that problem, making the output and interpreting the output properly here. She is, interacting her text with her code in a way that is presentable, readable by me. And she also did some ANOVA analyses, some box plots, everything that we went through in that pre-lab. And so I think this is very nice. I think the students are excited to be able to output something that looks shareable or publishable, in this R Markdown format, and they're able to get there very quickly and with a lot less confusion than in previous classes I've seen. So we're very excited about these Shiny apps. We're developing and editing them in real time. It's all on my GitHub, so that'll be updated regularly. And I've done this with 18 students this summer. We'll be doing it with 110 and studying their responses to these exercises. So I'm excited to share that with you. Thank you for letting me have this little extra pitch in lieu of a recorded talk. And I hope to see you at the conference. Thanks. Bye.